How do you pick a place to prep to? How do you pick a survivalist retreat? If you're going to be, a prepper, a survivalist, an off-gridder, whatever you want to call it, you're wanting to be prepared, or you're just looking for a place to get out of your busy life and decompress a little bit. What kind of places should you look for? What do you think are the favorite states? Is your favorite state on the list? What are the factors that you should be looking at when you want to go and pick a state? So think about that.
Live happy, fun-loving, and carefree.
So you want to be looking for a place that you need to get to, and you can call it bugging out, you can say you're a prepper, you can call it being a survivalist, you're an off-gridder, whatever. You're looking for a place for you and your loved ones, your family, whatever that might be. And it could, again, just be a place that you want to be able to get away from things, even just for a while. Back when I was a kid, we used to go up and visit the relatives on the farm and decompress from urban life that way by, spending a few weeks every summer, go up in the fall, whatever, and stay on the farm and live that country rural life. So that may be something that you're thinking of too. And so what should you be thinking about? What are the best states? So think about what states, what's your favorite? Is it going to be on the list? What do you think? So think about that. And what factors should you be looking at when you want to go and pick a state? So right off the bat, I'm going to come up with 5 states, and they'll be in no particular order, the 5 best states for prepping, survivalist, off-grid, bugging out to, whatever you want to call it. And we'll do a couple of runner-up second place states too, like bonus states. So just in case you're not happy with my 5, I'll give you a couple of bonus ones too. So what kind of things am I looking at? What kind of things are you looking at? What criteria are important to you? So one of the states that I picked, and again, no particular order, but one state that I picked is Texas. So why would Texas be on my list, and should Texas be on your list? Is, to me, probably the most important factor of all of them that we're going to talk about is population density, because you don't want to be in a place where there's a lot of people, where the density is really high. You're not going to bug out in Washington, D.C., New York City, Chicago. I mean, that's just ridiculous to be thinking that, a high population density place is where you're going to, want your retreat at, your getaway place. So population density is by far the most important thing, and really that's a critical thing. So even if you have, you meet other criteria, if it's just too crowded, if it's just too urban, if the population density is too high, you're going to want to think about going to someplace else. And Texas, you can't get much more low population density than Texas, and it's a big state, so that's why Texas is on my list, because of population density. Is your state on the list? Another state on my list is North Carolina. So why am I picking North Carolina, and what about the criteria? So the next criteria that's important is land prices. You've got to be able to afford the piece of land that you want to buy. So, when you think about around the country is where, are reasonable land prices. So that's why I picked North Carolina, because that represents a state that has really good land prices. And again, one thing, I don't know if I mentioned it at the beginning, that I really want to focus on, I'm talking about the lower 48 states, because if you're living in Virginia, there's no way you're going to bug out to your survivalist retreat in Alaska or Hawaii. That's just probably not going to happen. So that's why I just ruled those out right away. So, carrot, Go on, buddy. Cat's rubbing the tripod leg. So, go be a good boy. Critters. So, North Carolina represents a state with good land prices, because you got to be able to afford where you want to be. So that's something that you really want to think about as you're picking your place. Let me know what things you think are important. Drop me a comment. So the next state on my list is Tennessee. And the reason I picked Tennessee, because it represents a low tax state and a low government interference state. There aren't many regulations there. You're pretty much free to do what you want to do. Property taxes are about as low as they are anywhere in the country. And it's breezy. You wouldn't believe it. I mean, I don't like to talk about what day it is, because that dates the video here when I'm talking to you. But today is January 1st, January 1, 2021, the very first day of the year. And it's like 72 degrees out. The wind is blowing about 20 miles an hour from the south. So I'm trying to be in kind of a protected area here, but every once in a while we get a good gust. So Tennessee, because of taxes, government, and that type of criteria, is something that you want to think about. Some states are just oppressive with the taxes, and you've got to be able to afford to pay for the land, and then you've got to be able to afford to pay for the taxes every year. And that's just something that's really going to be important. So that's the third thing that you need to think about, is taxes and government. Are you looking for a place to move to, or just to have as a backup plan? So the next state on the list is Missouri, and the reason I picked Missouri is climate. The next thing that you want to be thinking about is the climate of the place that you're going to live. Because if you're bugging out, if you're having a place to prep to be you're a survivalist, your retreat that you need to get to provide for yourself and your family, you need to have a really good climate so that you can have a garden to grow food, and then hunt and fish and that type of thing. That you need a good supply of food, because if you don't have food and water, of course, you're going to have a hard time surviving. So climate is going to be really important, and that's why I picked the state of Missouri, because that represents a state with a really good climate, growing season, not terribly hot most of the time in the summer, and not terribly cold most of the time in the winter. Of course, there's always going to be the extremes, but that's a good state for climate to represent that, for that criteria. Do you have critters that you need to think about? Are they going to travel with you? And the last state on my list, the fifth state, is Arizona. So just to repeat, Texas, North Carolina, Tennessee, Missouri, and Arizona. And I picked Arizona to represent just kind of a catch-all: crime, man-made events, things like that, natural disasters, the types of things. You don't want to have flooding, you don't want to have hurricanes, tornadoes, things that are going to wipe you out if they occur. They might be pretty rare, but it'd be just my luck or just your luck that those things happen. So that is my 5 states: Texas, North Carolina, Tennessee, Missouri, and Arizona. Population density, land prices, taxes, government regulation, climate, disasters, whether they're man or natural. And that's why I picked those states. And then my bonus states, my runner-up second place states that could be in your particular situation, would be like the New England states, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, up there, or Montana is a low density, that's a great state, but they've got a pretty short growing season, so you'd have to be careful in that regard. And it's always what works for me might not work for you. You have to think about your situation. Are you older? Are you younger? Do you have some medical issues? Do you have young children? Do you have parents that you're going to be taking care of? Those kinds of things. And again, you may not be able to live permanently, like we live here 365 days a year. You may have responsibilities. You may need to be in the city for your job, for your family, for your kids' school, whatever reason it might be, and you're just looking for a vacation property, a retreat, a place to get away from the busyness of the world and just de-stress, and then also have a place that if you need to bug out, you have your situation, you're prepped, you have supplies and things put away there, and so you'll be able to survive whatever type of situation might come our way. So watch another video and subscribe so we can have more of these conversations, because hey, I'm really enjoying talking to you about what you can do to prepare for things and live a happy, fun-loving, carefree life.